Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I had an idea for a video. Wanted to get this old classic 30-06 and use some modern components and see if it's still relevant in the year 2023. So stay tuned. All right, as you probably know, the 30-06 first came out in 1906. It was developed by the government, and it was our military service rifle cartridge through 2 world wars and has an amazing legacy as a hunting cartridge worldwide. In 2023, with so many new cartridges coming out, is it still worth it? Is it still relevant? I think so. I think more than ever it is relevant. So this is a rifle I've showed on the channel before. It's just a Remington Model 700. It was made in 1976. I did put this pad on the back, made in 1976. It has a 22-inch barrel. It has a Burris Fulfield 1. It's the original Fulfield scope from 1990 on it. This is a classic rifle, older scope, and it's got a 22-inch barrel. So we're going to take this and we're going to get some high-end components. I would call them high-end, not extremely high-end, but modern, nice components. And we're going to see what it can do today. What am I going to use? All right, first of all, this Norma brass Hodgden H4350 Federal large rifle match grade primers, and Burger VLD Hunting 190 grain bullets. I'll give you my prediction before I go out. So I know with a 22-inch barrel, you know, the chances of it getting really high velocities are not the greatest. H4350 is known for being very accurate. It's not like Reloader 22 or Big Game. It's not known to give the 30-06 high velocity. So I'm hoping for 2,600 feet per second. I'll be a little disappointed if I can't get 2,600. If I get a little more than that, I'll be pleased, but I'm hoping for at least 2,600 feet per second. This is a big 190 grain bullet. And, you know, this is not, you know, shooting 130 or 150 grain bullet out of a 30-06 really fast over 3,000 feet per second. That's not what this is. So I'm hoping for 2,600, maybe, if I'm lucky, 2,650. I know the VLD bullets, all Berger bullets really are fairly consistently made and should be accurate, so I'm hoping for a tight group. But let's just see what happens.
All right, so I'm just load testing right now, and I'm just literally adding more powder. I'm just trying to get to a certain velocity. Here's my first shot. This is at 52 grains. Then I went 53, 54, and then from 55 to 58 is a 5-shot grouper. It's not really a group because it's 5 different powder charges, but that's pretty darn good. These Berger's 190s in my 30-06, it really doesn't matter what charge I use, it's going to hit the same spot. That's pretty cool. Here's a 3-shot group at 58 grains. Not the greatest. It's about 1.5 inches, but not too bad. I shot the last 4 brass I had. I need to resize them all once again for a second firing, but that was my last 4. I tweaked the powder. I literally went from 58 to 58.2, which probably meant nothing, but I just wanted to see. I actually jumped it up. Average velocity was 2806 on that, and had 2 that was 2819. So average velocity 2806. And here's the group. Those 3 on the left, I felt all good about them. That one I literally felt like was gonna go right, but don't we all say that, so probably a cop out. But I actually did think it shot right. I kind of pulled it a little bit, but I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm not gonna mess with the seating depth. because I didn't mess with the seating depth while all these different charge weights were being shot. And they were pretty much all cold bore shots. That pretty well tells me, I think the seating depth's right on. And then, you know, this group, that group, kind of about the same. Felt really good about those 3 shots. But the group, you know, inch, a little over. If you count that one, it's obviously more, maybe like 1.75 inches, but I feel good overall, and I love it that I went from 58 grains to 58.2, and I'll put it on the screen. I forgot what the velocity average was on the last group, but it definitely jumped, probably by 50 or 60 feet per second. So pretty happy with that.
All right, just to sum up what happened, actually thought I was recording some footage of me shooting, but it was actually not recording, so that's my fault. But who wants to see me shoot a gun anyway? So that means nothing. Overall story is this. Berger's manual is very cautious and conservative. So I went obviously under max like I should, and I worked my way up to max. I was only getting like 2,450 feet per second at max according to the book, with no signs of pressure on the bolt lift, closing the bolt, no signs of pressure on the primer or anything like that. So I jumped to 254, 255, 256, and then I went to 56.5, 57, and 58. I went to 57.5 and 58. So I jumped many, many times. I still, all the way up to 58, never had any kind of issues feeding, closing the bolt handle, opening the bolt handle. There was no, you know, tight bolt lifts. There was no signs of pressure on that primer. And it incrementally went up in velocity to, when I got to 58, it got to 27.50, which I'm pretty pleased with. Now, if you're watching this and you're not an experienced reloader, don't do this. Your rifle is totally different than mine. Make sure you follow book published grains of powder and work your way up slowly. But in this case, I knew what I was looking for. I saw no signs of pressure. So I slowly and methodically went up. Got to 58 grains, and I kind of stopped there because I got to 27.50, which I felt like was good enough. And then I showed on there how the first few, because I wasn't sighting it in, obviously I wasn't even worried about groups at this point. I'm just shooting it at the same spot on the target while I'm checking velocities with the chronograph. And I just happened to notice the first 3 were kind of over to the right and down, and then they just all was in a circle. Like 6 different loadings all hit in the same spot basically in a, you know, 1.5 to 2 inch group. But that's like 6 different loadings, so interesting there. Every shot was cold bore, so maybe that has something to do with it, but it was a pretty good group there for not even trying to make a group with different powder charges. So that was interesting. Got to 58, decided to shoot a 3-shot group, which you saw up there. Group was okay, you know, a little 1.5 inch group or so. The SD was good. It wasn't great, but it was good, probably around 20. So I thought, you know, I've got a pretty decent load, but I want to shoot one more group. And I had 4 brass left, so I loaded those 4 brass up. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to shoot one last group. I'm going to really take my time, try to shoot my best group. And why not, while I'm loading these, just bump it up a little bit more. And just for the heck of it, for no reason, I went to 58.2 grains and got out there, shot the 4-shot group. And you saw 3 were within 1 inch. So 3 shots there was MOA. And the one on the right was kind of a flyer, which is making the overall group closer to like 1.75 inches. We all say this, we all heard it a million times. I really did feel like when I shot that last group, my crosshairs had got over to the right a little bit. So I wasn't surprised that there was one over there. But we all say that. So I feel like it's a minute of angle loading, but technically it did not meet that standard. The most interesting thing though was the jump in velocity. My first shot was 28.19, and all I did was add 0.2 of a grain. I shot a 28.04, a 27.90, a 27, I can't remember, I think a 27.84, and then back up to a 2819. And overall, it was a 2806 average. And so that really jumped up. Now, that is a sign of pressure. When you see a velocity jump like that, that's a sign of pressure. So obviously, I'm not going to go up any more, but there was still no signs of pressure on the bolt, on the primer. None whatsoever. So I believe if I would have shot a little better, it's probably around a minute of angle inch group at 100 yards. Now, this is the first thing I've possibly tried. This is the first time I've ever shot these bullets on the first day within just a couple hours. So a lot more development can be done. Could use different powders. And I honestly didn't do a ton of brass prep. I just shot them all once, did a full length resizing, loaded them up, shot them again. I did measure them. They didn't need to be trimmed, so I didn't trim them. But on my next firing, I'll probably just trim them all to get them down to make sure they're the right length, deburr them, chamfer them, and check a few other things. So maybe on their second firing, they'll be a little bit tighter. There's many ways you can tweak this to make it better, but just for my first shot, I just decided, that powder, those primers, those bullets, those cases, why not? Let's just run out there and see what they did. I think they came out pretty good, especially with the feet per second. All right, I want to share a few numbers with you. I threw in the velocity I got today, the BC, the elevation, all that stuff into a ballistics calculator. Wanted to share it with you today. So that 190 grain bullet coming out of my 30-06 at 2,800 feet per second is going to give you about 3,300 foot-pounds of energy. At 100 yards, you're still going to have 2652 on the velocity and 2968 on the energy. Let's jump out to 300 yards. 2357 on velocity, 2345 on energy. It's pretty cool. I have almost the same number at 300 yards. And an 11.5 inch drop. Basically a foot. 400 yards, 2,217 feet per second. And 2,075 on the energy. 2,000 foot-pounds of energy at 400 yards is not a slouch by any means. By the way, that 2,200 velocity, 2,000 energy, it's about what you got in a 30-30 at the muzzle. And the drop is 26.3 inches, so basically 2 foot. You got a foot drop at 300, 2 foot at 400. I don't advocate hunting at this distance, but out to 600 yards, 1,952 feet on the velocity, feet per second, and 1,607 foot-pounds of energy at 600 yards. So, a common, measuring stick is at least 1,500 yards minimum to kill an elk. It's got 1,600 at 600 yards. Not that I would recommend shooting it at that distance. So this load that I came up with could be very deadly at multiple ranges. Now, you may or may not like the Berger bullet for hunting, but this is, I think, a pretty solid loading for hunting from any gun in any year. Why did I pick these particular components? It was literally what I had. I just looked around and I realized I had these Gr VLD 190s, H4350, match-grade federal primers, and some Norma brass. I knew they were all thought highly of as high-end components for the most part. And I thought, you know what? That would be a great round in my 30-06. And then I looked at the 30-06, an old gun with an old scope. And I thought, why do that? And then I thought, why not? So I did it. Do I recommend the 30-06 in the year 2023? Absolutely. 22-inch barrel, 1990 scope, 1976 rifle, cartridge from 1906. Still got it. Still can do it. You can be successful. The 30-06 is still relevant. It's still capable. And it's still pretty darn good for any hunting application that you could need it for. It's better than ever. The 30-06 is better than ever when in our modern world today. So absolutely, if you have your grandpa's old 30-06 and you think, oh, I've got to get rid of that thing, Maybe you just need to buy some new components. Maybe you just need to buy some high-end reloading bullets, brass, powder. You have a heck of a rifle cartridge for hunting in the year 2023. Have a great day. This has been a fun video to make. Check the description below. I've got all my links for everything. I hope you've had a wonderful day, and until next time, take care.